Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Josh Emmett to defeat Yair Rodriguez. And I'm here to talk about the main card for UFC Fight Night, whatever the fuck, Blanchfield versus Andrade. I'm going to give you my preview, predictions, and bets along the way, if there are any, which there are. I want to thank Jessica Andrade and Alexander Hernandez for taking their fights on very short notice. They are saving this card. And they are saving us from having to watch UFC Fight Night Pauga versus Wright. So, thanks again. Anyway, no offense to those guys. I'm just taking a cheap shot. Erin Blanchfield versus Jessica Andrade. Really close fight on paper. These are almost even odds. Blanchfield is an even money underdog. Look, I'm going with Andrade. Blanchfield, the sky is the limit. I think even if she loses this fight, the sky's the limit. But I think she's going to hit the sky here. I think Jessica Andrade is the sky. And I think Jessica Andrade is one of the best fighters of all time, female fighters. And she's the most dangerous female fighter in any weight class. So I know she's been defeated before and finished before. But pound for pound, nobody's more dangerous than Andrade. And look, Andrade has been defeated in precisely the style that, in precisely the way that Erin Blanchfield is sitting down envisioning herself winning right now. I would look to the Valentina Shevchenko fight and the Liz Carmouche fight in particular. Just, side control, crucifix and elbows. Raquel Pennington also got her down and choked her out, even though she beat Raquel Pennington by decision as well. But the point is, only really big, strong, physical, good fighters have beaten Jessica Andrade, or finished Jessica Andrade, and then Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang, who is still a very strong physical fighter, 115. She's just, the smallest of the pack, but still an elite fucking fighter. Just like Valentina Shevchenko, totally elite. And then once you look to her bantamweight losses, they're to really big, strong girls, Liz Carmouche is stronger than fucking whoever. OSP. I don't know. She's really strong, though. But Erin Blanchfield here, she's got all the skill. I really trust what I've seen from her. She's only lost one fight. It was a split decision to Tracy Cortez. Really close fight, although I thought Tracy edged it out. And then her victories are all over really good fighters, even outside the UFC and certainly inside the UFC. Outside the UFC, she beat plenty of future UFC fighters. Sarah Alpar, Victoria Leonardo, Kay Hansen, Brogan Walker, Sanchez, whatever. I think she's in the UFC now after the Ultimate Fighter. But Erin Blanchfield, she's a versatile fighter, but she's fighting the best fighter that she's ever fought here, Jessica Andrade. And I do think if Jessica Andrade is able to find one moment where she's able to dominate, like in the way that J.J. Aldrich did in her fight against Erin Blanchfield. That's the one really bad look, I thought, was what Aldrich was doing to her in the first round and a half. She was piecing her up and just steadily outboxing her, and Blanchfield looked flustered. And I don't think you could afford to look flustered or have a lapse in judgment or whatever, a shitty moment against Jessica Andrade. You have to mind your P's and Q's. And Andrade, I think, if she's not able to get a finish with her first moment of offense, which, that's pretty tall order, I think she's going to be able to at least take the fight from Erin Blanchfield. In a moment like that, she's not going to pepper her like Aldrich did. She's going to beat the shit out of her. She only throws hammers. So I'm picking Andrade to win. I can't tell you if it'd be by submission, decision, or knockout. I guess I'd go third round TKO with a gun to my head. But my bet, which is the point of this, is on the money line, minus 135. I just trust Jessica Andrade. I trust her defensively, but more so I trust her offensively. Erin Blanchfield, I've only seen her lose once. It's to a really good fighter, again, Tracy Cortez, and she looks scrappy in that fight. And there's no reason to doubt her durability and whatever. This is just plainly a bet on Jessica Andrade as a fighter. I think she's easily the best fighter Erin Blanchfield's ever fought. And she's going to give her problems she hasn't faced yet. Still, again, Blanchfield's fought some really good fighters, dominated Miranda Maverick, ripped the arm off of Molly McCann, and there's a chance she does that if she hits a takedown, which she's probably going to need to strike her way in, but if she hits a takedown and starts working Andrade from the top, she might just be that technically sound and that strong where she can go through Andrade. And if she does, I think she gets a finish. I think either way, this fight ends probably in the middle of the fight somewhere. But again, I would be more sure, honestly, if Blanchfield was having success, I'd be more sure of her getting the finish. You know, I'd have a hard time imagining Andrade losing a decision to Erin Blanchfield. Because if it's a war, I don't know. I would expect Andrade to get the finish. And if she was thoroughly dominated, I would expect Erin Blanchfield to get the finish. So maybe the smart bet is the under, but the line is set at 2.5 rounds. I can't go either way on that. So I'm just playing the Jessica Andrade money line, minus 135. I think, or minus 130. I think it's a good bet. I think it's the likely victor. Next up, Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright. Zach Pauga's coming down from heavyweight. He's at light heavyweight here. Jordan Wright is moving up from 185. This is a Jordan Wright fight, so it's probably only going to go one of two ways. First round finish for Jordan Wright, second round loss for Jordan Wright. The thing is, Zach Pauga's got a lot of, there's a lot of unknowns with him coming into this fight. He's very inexperienced, got a 5-1 record. I think he's 4-0 as an amateur, though, and 2-0 in exhibitions on The Ultimate Fighter. Of course, the one legit fight on The Ultimate Fighter is his only loss, and it's a knockout, and it's, I don't know, 6 months ago, whatever, to Muhammad Usman. Probably even longer, maybe 9 months ago. I probably should have looked this shit up. But Muhammad Usman knocked him out cold. The thing is, Muhammad Usman is a big, strong fucking monster. And, he's got that one-punch knockout that Jordan Wright doesn't have. But what Jordan Wright does have is speed. Speed can kill. And Jordan Wright, he's a very effective striker. He's a good finisher on the ground, too. He's got 5 submissions of his 12 wins. But the primary trait here of all of his victories is that they all come in round 1, aside from one of them, which comes 1 minute or less than 1 minute into round 2. He's a front runner. But the thing is, his 4 losses come 3 via KO, 1 via submission. And they're to all in the UFC. Marc-Andre Barrio guillotined him. Dusko Todorovic pounded him out. And then he lost to Joaquin Buckley by knockout in round 2. And Bruno Silva got him out of there as well. I just think he's a breakable fighter. I think he's always going to be susceptible to the finish, certainly to the knockout. And Zach Pauga, even though he hasn't demonstrated the greatest knockout power, he's a big, strong, former heavyweight who, even though he's 35 years old, he's 3 or 4 years older than Jordan Wright, he still doesn't have too much mileage on him, and he's with a good team, I think. Elevation, I don't fucking know. I looked it up, though. But either way, Jordan Wright has an opportunity with his speed advantage, the fact that they're meeting, at light heavyweight, but Jordan Wright was a former middleweight. I think it's going to open up his chances of winning in round 1. But I'm picking against him. My prediction would be Zach Pauga gets Jordan Wright out of there in round 2. Even though Zach Pauga's got 4 of his 5 professional wins being by decision, it's a prediction against Jordan Wright's durability. I can't fathom that guy going to a decision, certainly not in a loss. And as for a win, as for the other bet, I like, as for the bets, I like Zach Pauga by finish, minus 150. I don't love it, but it's my prediction. And Jordan Wright is a hedge, winning in round 1, plus 300. I think there's some value there. Or even I think you can get it at plus 450 for round 1 knockout. It's just, I don't know. I think if shit opens up, I'd rather play the flat bet. But with Jordan Wright's speed advantage, his striking skills, his unorthodox striking skills with his karate and shit, and the fact that Zach Pauga got knocked out in his last fight and he's entering his mid-30s, or smack dab in the middle of them, I think there's definitely some potential for Jordan Wright to get it done in round 1. All right, Jamal Pogues versus Josh Parisian. Jamal Pogues, I don't love him as a fighter. I like the guy, really cool to see him. Well, whatever. I don't even know what happened with his mother, but after he won in the Contender Series, he was giving a shout out to his mother, who's at home fighting cancer. So, whatever. I feel for the guy. But as for how he is as a fighter, he doesn't impress me too much. He's a guy who has fluctuated. He's been a light heavyweight. Now he's a heavyweight. Got a 9-3 record, 4 TKOs, 4 decisions, and just 1 submission. And his 3 losses are 1 via KO and 2 via submission. He did lose at light heavyweight, the submission fights, deep into the fight. Round 3 to Jordan Young, who died, rest in peace. And round 4 to Alex Polizzi, a heel hook, believe it or not. Which, whatever. It actually fucking happened. But Alex Polizzi's a skilled fighter, and that guy's over in Bellator kicking ass. Still, Pogues moved up here. He's a solid heavyweight. You can't really tell he used to be a light heavyweight unless you look into his career. But, he fills out nicely. I think one of the Contender Series fights, he was like 220 pounds. But still, he fills out nicely. And Josh Parisian doesn't have to worry about filling out. That guy's a bona fide heavyweight. He's got a 15-5 record, 11 TKOs, 2 submissions, 2 decisions. And his 5 losses are 2 via TKO, 1 submission, and 2 decisions. We've seen him get grounded out by Dontel Mays, just mauled, where he was finished in round 3. Parker Porter outworked him. Tony Lopez triangle choked him, I believe, in King of the Cage. That's his 1 submission loss. And Michel Batista TKO'd him in round 2, mauled him on The Ultimate Fighter. But pretty much Josh Parisian, I think he's, a solid fighter. Even though I just talked about how much he was mauled, those are some really tough guys that can overwhelm him with wrestling and physicality. Josh Parisian is a solid fighter, though, and he's a guy I trust more than Jamal Pogues. Jamal Pogues, I think, has good hands. I don't trust his overall striking, though, his leg kick game, his ability to take leg kicks. And on the ground, I don't trust him either, because he's lost twice by submission, even though it was deeper into the fight into good fighters. I just don't trust him, that combined with his 1 submission victory. So I don't think he's the best heavyweight. I don't know if Josh Parisian's the guy to exploit any weakness of his, but I do think it's worth a bet. Josh Parisian, I think if he wins the fight, it's where he's generally slowing Pogues down and starting to take over. And I think that could produce a round 3 finish. So I sprinkled something on that at plus 2,000. And I also like Josh Parisian's money line at plus 200. There's definitely some value there because there's so many unknowns with Pogues. And Josh Parisian, I think, is maybe a little underrated. Still, Pogues, he hasn't beaten too many great fighters, but he did beat Jared Vandera, and I think it was a 9-minute fight as an amateur or whatever. Ground him out, though. Largely got the better of the wrestling. There's definitely some promise there with Pogues, but I trust Parisian more at this point. As a pro with 20 fights, been in the UFC for some time. And he's a more versatile guy. Pogues does seem a little limited. I think he's going to have a hard time winning the physicality battle here. I don't know if he's going to shoot, but if he does, I think he's going to have a hard time wrestling Parisian, certainly for 15 minutes, like Dontel Mays and Michel Batista did. I don't think that's a path to victory for Pogues, but he could implement a ground game plan and steal around, but overall, he's going to want to be on the feet and have his speed find him success. I just think Josh Parisian makes this a grimier fight with all the little in-betweens. And by the 3rd round, we're looking at a competitive fight, if not Parisian pulling away. So gun to my head, I'll go Parisian wins a decision. Bet on Parisian to win his money line and round 3 finish, plus 2,000. Next up, Marcin Prachnio versus William Knight. This is a real fuck show of a fight. I fucking love it. William Knight is a monster, a ball of muscle, either a light heavyweight ball of muscle or a super heavyweight ball of muscle, if you allow him to weigh in there. He's just a killer. He's got 11 wins, 4 losses. His 11 wins include 9 KOs and just 2 decisions. And his 4 losses are 2 KOs and 2 decisions. He was TKO'd by Devin Clark in round 3 And Tafon Nchukwi, before he got to the UFC, knocked him out in round 1. And look, William Knight is a short guy. He's given up a lot of reach and a lot of height typically in every fight. I think the reach is even here, and he's given up 5 inches to Prachnio. And I like William Knight's chances of winning by knockout, I suppose, but I'm picking against him here. I think Prachnio is still a vulnerable guy. I don't trust his chin too much, and William Knight definitely has the power to, change shit and knock his lights out. But I like Prachnio winning this fight. Prachnio, he's 15-6, 11 KOs, 1 submission, 3 decisions. And his 6 losses come 4 via KO, 2 via decision. We did see Prachnio lose a decision to Philip Lins, which was still somewhat inspiring, seeing him lose in the UFC and not get finished in round 1. We did see him lose and finished by round 1 3 times in a row to Sam Alvey, Ankalaev, and whoever the fuck else. Mike Rodriguez. He seems like a vulnerable guy, and I don't trust his chin moving forward, even though he's looked good in some longer fights. Again, the loss to Philip Lins and the win over Khalil Roundtree, which is a very impressive win, especially for a guy that is probably questioning his own durability. Khalil Roundtree's a killer, and Prachnio was able to fight really hard in that fight and win a close decision, 2-1. Fought hard in round 3. So I like Prachnio to win. I think if he loses, it's by knockout, or of course William Knight could make shit work for him and win a decision with some explosive takedowns and knockdowns. But I think Prachnio gets the better of William Knight. I think he does better at range. I think he's probably learned to protect himself a little better after the 3 consecutive knockout losses. And I thought he fared well against Philip Lins, on the feet anyway. Down the stretch, Philip Lins started dominating on the ground. But William Knight, he's got a lot of physicality and a lot of nice physical traits, but one of them is in height and leverage. And I think he's going to have a hard time trying to go through Prachnio. He's going to be caught on the outside. It won't look like the Maxim Grisham fight, but he's going to lose on points is my prediction. Maybe he loses via finish, but I'm thinking he loses on points. Either way, I like Prachnio's money line at -120. Knight, of course, is -110. This is a fight where if you have a lean, you play it, and I'm playing Marcin Prachnio. I just don't trust William Knight. He's too low output, too patient, too concerned with his own gas tank. Which, whatever. He does manage it well, conserves energy, and explodes, but Prachnio, I think, will be in his face and score more points, especially down the stretch. And Alexander Hernandez versus Jim Miller. Full disclosure, Jim Miller's my favorite fighter, aside from Darren Elkins, maybe. They're like 1A, 1B. So I should admit that here, because I don't want you to hear me say it in another video. I may as well tell you here before I pick Jim Miller to win. But look, I am picking Jim Miller. I see the value on Jim Miller, and I'm betting on him. But this is an interesting fight. Hernandez and Jim Miller are both front runners. They're both awesome round 1 fighters. Miller typically gets round 1 finishes, most of them submission, and Hernandez kicks ass, usually gets the knockout. The knockout's his thing. He's got 6 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 5 decisions in his 13 wins. But even if he doesn't win by knockout, he typically does very well in round 1. And I expect him to do well in round 1 here, and which takes away a lot from Jim Miller, to be honest. But I think athletically and physically, Hernandez is superior. Certainly he's, 10 years younger? 10 years younger. Jim Miller's almost 40. Hernandez is 30 years old. And he's got 1 inch of height, 1 inch of reach. It's not gigantic, but I think combined with his athleticism and physicality, he's going to be doing well in round 1. But I think Jim Miller weathers the storm. And from there, look, Jim, he's never been the guy to get the late finish, to be honest. He's ground some really tough guys out for decisions along the way. But you look to his Kamal Shalarus fight back in 2011, when Jim hit him with a knee and punches and knocked him out against the cage. That was his last finish. That was outside of round one up until his fight with Nicholas Mota. Or no, Eric Gonzalez. Whichever one of his last three victories came first. Gonzalez, I believe. And that Gonzalez victory was his first victory outside of round one. You know, his first finish outside of round one in 10 years. Of course, he followed that up with two more round two finishes over Mota and Cowboy, which was a guillotine. But it's inspiring for Jim Miller. It's very encouraging seeing Jim Miller get these finishes in round two for a guy that I always kind of pegged as a round one or bust kind of guy. Not that he busts and gives out or, gets finished like Jordan Wright or whatever. He's not round one or bust like that. But typically Jim Miller slows down. He's been ground out by decision, losing the last two rounds against Scott Holtzman and Joe Selecki and Vince Pichel and whoever the hell he lost to. He does well in round one or well enough. He's in there and then he slows down. That's how the majority of his losses have looked. As far as knocking Jim Miller out, yeah, it's happened. It happened, twice. Cowboy Cerrone got him out of there in round two with the head kick, and Dan Hooker got him out of there in round one with a knee. That's it. And Hernandez, I don't think he's going to be able to submit Jim Miller. So Hernandez, it's a pretty tall order to knock Jim Miller out, but I think if he does so, especially considering that he took this fight very early, he's going to have to do it in round one. But also another path to victory, I think, for Hernandez that might be a little underrated or overlooked is a decision victory, which I played. You can get that at plus 500. Alexander Hernandez has won decision victories over Francisco Trinaldo. Fucking bullshit. And Olivier Aubin-Mercier. I don't know where I got Alexander from. That's Hernandez's name. But Hernandez looked really promising winning those fights. I was really impressed when I saw him outwork and out-wrestle Olivier Aubin-Mercier. That was an impressive victory because that's OAM's game. So, for a young fighter, I do think the decision against a savvy, durable veteran like Jim Miller, it's possible, and it's definitely worth the plus 500. But my bet is Jim Miller getting a finish. I'm not as strongly convicted on this as I was against when he was fighting Billy Quarantillo, because Billy Quarantillo is a guy who builds. He does very well in rounds 2 and 3, as opposed to Jim Miller or Hernandez. That's what made that fight easier to predict. This one, it's a little tougher to predict. Jim Miller, he doesn't have too many late finishes, although his last 3 all come in round 2. And that's really what's given me the encouragement. I like Jim Miller's hands, too. He's always had good hands, I know, but the 2 knockouts he got recently, even though they're over lesser competition, Eric Gonzalez and Nicholas Mota, but still, they're, solid, powerful strikes. Accurate, really. More accurate than powerful, especially that hook he landed on Mota, a lunging punch or whatever you call it. But Jim Miller, I think he's going to be a sniper in this fight. He's going to wait for one opportunity, and I think if he's able to get Hernandez past 5 minutes, especially past like 7 minutes, and hurt him and make him have to survive in one of those moments in the second half of the fight, he's going to get a finish. And Jim Miller, the one thing he's got that, Billy Quarantillo and Drew Dober and whoever the hell else don't have is his insane submission skills. And Jim Miller, I don't think he's going to be able to conventionally win by submission, take him down and take his back or whatever. It's going to be opportunistic. I think if he wins by submission, it'd be a guillotine. And if he wins by TKO, it would be kind of like the Quarantillo fight or whatever, waiting for his moment and turning the fight around. And I'm betting on that. That's what I'm betting on. Jim Miller, plus 180. I like his money line. And his round 2 and round 3 finishes at plus 1,000, plus 1,400. I think there's value there. Not so much, again, because they're both really round 1 fighters. But Hernandez taking this fight on short notice and Jim Miller with his recent success in round 2, getting those finishes, I think there's definitely value there. So the prediction is Jim Miller wins. I guess I'll go round 2 submission, deep in round 2. But my bets are round 2 and round 3, flat, TKO or submission, and Jim Miller's money line at plus 180. Again, I sprinkled something on Hernandez at plus 500. And the round 1 finish for Hernandez, especially by TKO, whatever. It's not so juicy, but if you were looking to hedge, again, I think that's just as likely for Hernandez as a decision. So that's pretty much it for the main card. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.